So I'm back on the main board now, and I'm just having a go at these phono connectors for the audio, and there's also one for the composite video. I will eventually probably replace these, just at the minute I've decided to leave them on. So I'm just sort of scraping off the thick of the rust on these with a screwdriver, and then I've got another one of these pencils. This has actually got like a steel brush in it, and I'm just using that to scrub away more of the surface rust. So just doing this enough just to get decent contact and be able to get a phono connector on there without it damaging the connector. I've just realised with my fiberglass brush I was using it wrong. I was trying to turn the end bit to get more out, and it's the top end. What a pillock. I'd like to see if I can fire this up first before I recap it, if it's an option. What the actual inside contacts are going to be like, I don't know. That could be an area of problems. I was wondering why this little top cover of the modulator had these holes in, and I think it's just because they've used the same process to make it as the one at the bottom. It's the same bit of metal really, and they've just stamped some extra holes in this one, obviously cheaper for manufacturing. So these connectors that I've got here, I'm just going to dunk these and leave them in some vinegar overnight and see what we get in the morning. You can actually just see down here where there's some of the blue corrosion around this pin. It's actually bubbling as the vinegar's reacting. Even in some of the other places it is. You can see all muck and stuff lifting out of the holes. There's a few places now where it's actually starting to fizz. Down here on this one there's little tiny bubbles fizzing up as it's reacting. I'll leave that overnight anyway, see what we get tomorrow. So these have been in soak quite a while now, and there's a horrible scummy layer on the top of the vinegar. I don't really know why I bothered doing them all, because they're not all going to be used. So I'm just going to give these a bit of a scrub up, the ones that I want to keep at least, perhaps all of them a little bit, get rid of the muck. And I'll probably just rinse them out in just some normal water and dry them off with a hairdryer, and then have a look at how bad they are. It's mainly the power connector and the video connector are the ones that I want to keep, which I think is that one. So it's the smaller one of them. Yeah, but they're really not in the best of shape. You can really smell the reaction between the vinegar and the metal and corrosion or whatever it is. It's the same sort of smell that you get when you put vinegar on dead batteries. It's obviously the corrosion reacts, and it's not a very nice smell at all. And there's quite a lot of sort of white residue settled in there, so that seems to have got rid of that. So yeah, lovely. Can't even see through that. So I'm going to go and rinse these out, probably in the sink. Give them a blast with a compressor to get rid of as much of the water as possible, and then just give them a bit of a dry with a hairdryer. That will hopefully stop them corroding any further. They're only connectors, so it's not the end of the world. So these are mostly dried now. You can see the video port connector, the 23 pin one, is much better looking than the 25. Well, I say much, a bit better looking. And it looks like this can be taken apart. I have already had a go at disassembling this power connector, so I might be able to take that out and pull all these pins out and clean them up individually, perhaps use a fiberglass brush or something on it. So what I am going to try and have a go at is using some of this metal polish just in here with the toothbrush, just to see if that will clean the pins up, because this is ever so slightly abrasive, and that's going to be really the only way I can easily get in there and sort of clean those pins up a bit more, and perhaps the inside of the connector. So I'm just going to put a bit of that in and then try this. I mean, this might be a disaster, I don't know, but it's worth a shot. Well, it does seem to be a bit more of a shine coming through on them. It's hard to see because it's not covered in the cream stuff, but I'll try a bit down here where the rust's collected on the edge of the inside edge of the metal framework. I might even have a go at this on the outside, see if it shifts it, or that might need a bit of wet and dry or something. I don't think this is shifting the rust off the metalwork, but hopefully it'll help with the pins a little bit. Looks like this might need some kind of anti-greasing kind of thing in it, like some washing up liquid or something, because it's a bit of a struggle to clear this out. Getting this off here is going to be a problem now. Let's try it with this. So them pins are looking a lot better now. So that's definitely helped, and it's taken some of this off of here. I mean, really, I think that's probably, it's going to need a good scrape, but that's going to be more usable than it was by a long way. So it's just some crusted up rust build up on here, which could easily just be scraped away on the inside, because that's where the other connector will rub against. You can buy these on eBay. I've seen someone selling them, and perhaps there are other places that they are still available, but they're on eBay. It's £6 delivered and another £25 for the connector, and people are actually buying them, so so I've given that another good scrubbing up. I think what I'm going to do then is take this down and wash it out with some washing up liquid and the brush and some pretty hot water, and that will clear off this sort of a greasiness that this cream's left on. What I'll do before I do that is have a look at this power connector. I'll take that apart and perhaps do the same process with that and give that a go. Rather than perhaps using a fiberglass brush, this might be more gentle. It'll be interesting to see what effect it has. So these should come apart. Now I found, I'll just get that to focus. You lift these little bits up here just a tiny bit, and that will just nudge over, and you'll hopefully see there's a little bit of a gap over here now, and then again here there's just like a little bit of a hook on there, so that just needs to be lifted over, and that will move forward. And then you've got a similar thing on the bottom side here. There's just these two little bits that are hooked on. They go into that hole there, and then that can be pulled forward and removed. And then there's two clips on this, one either side, one there and one there, and you just gently hotch them up, and then this piece will lift away over the pins, and you'll see there's also this little metal bit here, which is partly what's used to solder this to the board. So that sort of anchors this down along with this framework. And then I think these pins will then just pull out. And there you go, you see there the contactors for the power connector. So they should just slide out, so they're something that can now be cleaned. The only issue will be getting them back in the right places in the right order. But yeah, fairly straightforward that. So I'm just going to give this a go, see what happens. It may work, it may not. So I'll put some more of this cream on this brush and we'll give this a go. I'd say with these it's probably not so much of a big issue as it is with the video connector. And it's definitely made a more notable difference on the video connector than it is on these. So I've taken these down to the sink, put a load of washing up liquid in, squirted that around all these and on these bits of plastic and metal, scrubbed them up again with the electric toothbrush and rinsed them under hot water as I've been doing that, and just kept repeating that until they were pretty clean. I'm just going to give them a bit of a dry with a hairdryer now, just to make sure they are completely dry, and that will help. Obviously you heat the metal up and then that'll evaporate any water. I've blasted them already with the air compressor, so they should be pretty much dry anyway. So it's quite a lot of work really, just for what it is, but if you've got a situation where something that you can't replace, then it might be the only option. Looking at this, actually there's another pin here that's not quite straight. There we go. And it, on the surface of it, it doesn't, you could say, well, it doesn't look that much better. You might think that, but then when you compare it, I know this one was admittedly worse, but you can see how much duller and discoloured that one is in comparison. Even the bits that aren't, or what little bits there are that aren't covered in rust, they're significantly worse looking than that. So I think it's been a worthwhile experiment. And it's definitely made a massive difference to the pins. You see inside there, they're so much better, so they're going to make contact now. This one, I'm not convinced this was really worth messing about with too much, although obviously this does mean that I can get in here and if there was any contamination in there, that's now been gotten rid of. There's a lot of fiddling around. I don't know if you can buy these or not anymore, if it's possible to get hold of them, so again it may be, although it's a lot of hassle, you might not have much choice with something like this. And that's brushed up a little bit, it's not great. But you're not going to be able to get these back to a factory shine. So just the fun task now of trying to figure out where all of these go. And there we go. It looks about right. I think this went on next. And these pins will go through the holes on the underside of that. Hopefully. If I can get them all to line up correctly. I also need to put this little thing in first, because it actually goes on the underside here. I can't actually remember which way that this was, but you can see there's I'll find something to point with. You might be able to see here there's a couple of little bits of plastic. Let's move this out of the way. This leaves two little bits sticking up here, so they're probably a guide for this springy part here to sit in. So yeah, I think that would probably be a contactor actually, so that probably could have done with a bit better of a clean up. Yeah, so I think this will be a point of contact when the power lead slides in. It'll be the square casing, so I'm just going to give that a bit of a rub with this pen. I really don't like these pens. They're very good, but I always end up with little tiny bits of the glass in my fingers. I think even if you wore some gloves, they'd go through the gloves, unless you wore something thick, and then you just wouldn't be able to do the job. You can see how that's, probably see that that's a lot shinier now. So the fiberglass pencil is a lot more abrasive, I think, than using that cream. So I think using the cream and the toothbrush on the pins is a good idea, because you're not going to strip off so much of the coating so easily. And to be honest, I'm not sure how else you'd very easily get at the pins to clean them on these DB connectors. It'd be difficult to get the brush in there, and well, probably a lot of the bristles would break off if you had them long. So, but perhaps for this connector, maybe the fiberglass pencil is a better option. Perhaps again, like with these, you could rub it there. It's mainly going to be these end points, the insides of these end points, where the pin will make contact as it goes in. It'll grip. But I'm just going to leave them as they are. I think at least if there is a problem with connectivity, I know I can disassemble this now and do something with it. So I've got those pins back in again. Just going to try and realign this thing onto here. So these two prongs go through the holes. That springy bit goes to the inside there. And then I think this was probably better going the other way around, so I'll lower this onto here, or not. Yep, it's definitely a bit fiddly. So I think these clips need to go onto this part here. So I'm trying to do it upside down, which isn't going to help. That's knocking about right. You see them clicking. So that's now intact. So this one then needs to go on, and so that pin there goes towards the bottom, so that will solder onto the PCB, so that helps hold the frame together. And again, these points here are going to make contact with the outer edge of the square plug. I can find it. So this part of the plug will make contact with these, so these could be worth giving a bit of a rub if they're discoloured, which a couple of these are. And I could also just put a little bit of tension on these just to bend them back a tiny bit if they're like these, they've been flattened out, so they're not going to make so much contact. And then this is just a reverse of the process really. It just pushes on and push them, and that clips over there. Bend them down a touch, and that's it. It's definitely looking a little bit better than it was.